My name is Patricia Gestoso, and I'm here to talk to you about the myths around the low representation of women in tech. I wear several hats. The first one is I'm a global director of scientific services for an engineering and scientific software company. My background is chemical engineering. I have a PhD in computational science. And prior to my current position, I've been head of control research and head of training services. I'm also an inclusion strategist, and such I help leaders and organizations to leverage diversity into their business strategy so they can boost innovation as well as attract and retain talent. And I'm also board advisor at We and AI, that is a British NGO that wants to make artificial intelligence work for everybody. I'm also leading the partnerships in UK for the European Women on Boards. That is a Belgian NGO that supports the European Commission's directive of at least 40% of board members of each gender by 2026. I'm a writer and keynote speaker in the areas of women in tech, artificial intelligence, ethics and inclusion in the workplace. I'm also a feminist life coach, and I'm now writing a book about how women succeed in tech worldwide. And so far we have collected testimonials from more than 400 women around the world. So, in a perfect world, I was told that I will go to the university. If I were successful, I would go and pursue a master and a PhD, and after that, naturally, I could, thrive and be in top leadership positions in companies. That was the theory. That was the reality. So when I realized that things were so complicated, of course, the first thing was to question myself and thought, okay, what did I do wrong? What do I need to fix? And the first thing is, of course, I realized that there was an idea of the ideal tech worker user, and that idea was very different from me. So I took ownership of me and my career, and I embarked in an exhausting set of programs, such as leadership courses, negotiation technique workshops, emotional intelligence, master classes. Of course, I also had several mentors and attended imposter syndrome workshops. Whilst it was somehow helpful, it was definitively exhausting, and none of them got me the career I have now. So what happened? Actually, that I was unaware of 3 pillars that made women to actually be rolled out of leadership positions. The first one is this belief that tech is a democracy. The reality is that it's not. Is that, as this cartoon that I draw shows, not animals are equal. And although we love to say that everybody follows the same processes, not everybody comes with the same background, and definitively not everybody is given the same opportunities. So this is the reason why we have a tech that looks very white, very male, very able, and very cisgender. So the second pillar is patriarchy. We have all these tales that said that actually women don't like STEM, that women don't like computers. But what's the reality? The reality is that actually the first women coding were women. So men were actually more focusing hardware because it was what looked like it was the most important thing. That was until the 80s, when definitively it was shown that the most promising part, if you want, of tech was actually the software. So then men took over and pushed out women, and of course the salaries increased. So we built all those stories around women not wanting to work in tech, which actually was the opposite. Women were pushed out of tech. And the third one is exceptionalism. So we have mottos such as go fast and break things, where if we would say the same things in a pharma company or within the food sector, everybody will be terrified. But in tech, saying, these kind of things appears like natural, because guess what? We are different. So what I realized is I needed to unlearn all those patterns that were holding me back. So I'll share with you 7 of them. The first one, the myth that really in tech what pays off is to be the lone ranger. And this is epitomized with, the stories about Elon Musk and Steve Jobs being those geniuses and everybody else just rallying around them. Actually, what has worked for me is to be part and build communities where very generous people have supported and make introductions to people that have been key in my career. And when I talk about communities, I want to offer that you need to explore this very openly, not talking only about your company, but also your industry, other support groups, and, for example, volunteering. Again, don't limit yourself to your office or your region. Just go national and global. We now have social media and Zoom that allows really to have discussions with anybody in the world. The second habit that I had to learn is that of the self-made professional. Again, the tech bros tell us that they were self-made, when most of them had rich parents, let's be clear, and also they were able to network in their during their years at very expensive university. So instead of trying to be a self-made tech bro, what I'm challenging you is to ask more for help. And I meet women every day that work in tech that restrain themselves from asking for help, which when I query them, but wouldn't you help somebody more junior than you to get the job? Of course, they tell me yes, Patricia, but they keep talking themselves out from asking for help. Please don't. People are there to help you as you will help them if it was the opposite. The third one is we do have all this mythology about networking, which looks more really like, speed dating and almost creepy, where you just are in a room, virtual or in person, and you have like 2 minutes to introduce yourself and then move on. What I want to offer is instead look for connection. And one trick that works very well with me is virtual coffee chats. You want advice from somebody? invite them to a 20-minute coffee chat to explore synergies and learn more about them. That will further really a relationship that will, at the long time, can help you in your career. The third is to learn to let go. A lot of times we are stuck in our career because we want to fix things. We have a toxic boss, or we have a toxic environment, and we said, oh, if we just do it a little bit longer, or a boss that hasn't promoted us in years, and it's like, if I just do that once more, if I, instead of the 130%, I go to the 150%, I will get that promotion. I'm offering you to think about letting go. That sometimes the best you can do is quit and move on. The fifth one, I'm sure a lot of you are well acquainted with it, and is aiming for perfection. Everybody tells you if you want to succeed, if you want to be the best, aim for perfection. I want to offer you that, yes, maybe if you are doing your tax assessment, you want to aim for perfection, because of course, you cannot just do it like, wow, let's just do it 50% okay and hope, that's all right. But in most cases, good enough is exactly what is needed. And just aiming, try to aim for a B+ rather than A++. What would look like if a report would be 85% good rather than 100%? What will happen is that you will spend more time in your career rather than putting a lot of effort in activities that at the end don't pay off. And the sixth tip is that we often assume that everybody knows our value, what we are doing, our managers, the CEO, our colleagues. But the reality is everybody is focusing on their career and their priorities. So I have what I call the wins folder in my inbox, in my email inbox, and it's magic. Every time I get an email about congratulating me about something good I did, or somebody telling me, Patricia, you saved the day, I've put that email in the wins folder. And guess what? When a day is bad, I go and I read a couple of emails. More importantly, when I have my self-assessment, and when I go to my annual assessment with my manager and my mid-year assessment, I go to my wins folder. That helps me to actually gather evidence of all the value I'm providing to the company. And sixth, we are in an environment where everybody tells us that we need role models to progress, that we cannot be what we don't see. It's a lie. Look at Marie Curie. Nobody says, you cannot have a Nobel Prize because no woman before you had a Nobel Prize in chemistry and physics. She got 2. So what a coach can do for you is basically, rather than having you getting advice from outside, is actually to help you to gather all the internal knowledge that you have. Also, it will help you with your limiting beliefs. And finally, a bonus. We focus a lot on being analytical, on being objective. I want to offer that you trust more your emotions, because your emotions is basically your interpretation of the world through your senses. And a lot of times we feel like having emotions is something wrong. But the reality is that by getting more into our emotions and understanding what is our experience, we can add a lot of value to our professional and personal lives. So, some takeaways. Again, stop fixing yourself and understand that the system is biased against us. And there are 3 pillars that work against us: meritocracy, patriarchy, and exceptionalism. Moreover, there are 7 tactics that you can leverage for yourself. One of them, for example, are communities. Another one is the WIN folder. And I cannot enforce enough how having a coach has been transformational for me. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So please be playful and experiment with alternatives. So please, let's continue the conversation. I would love to connect with you in social media. Thank you very much for your time.